Okay, so I just want to show the time frame that we are in for these high watches, and I keep reiterating it because I want people to understand why these high watches are on this channel for this reason. And the most important thing you need to understand is that we've had 3 days and 3 nights for the sign of Jonah. Since the blood moon tetrad began back in April 2014, we've had 2 signs of Jonahs, because we've had 2 Passover nights. So this is the first sign of Jonah from April 2014 all the way through to the 6th of September 2017. That's 3.5 years, okay, which is actually 3 days, from the 14th day to the 17th day. So this is the first sign of Jonah, and then the second sign of Jonah begins from the midnight hour, which initiates the 15th day on this timeline, and it goes all the way through up until July 2019. Okay, so this is the second sign of Jonah overlapped with the first one. Okay, so this is the only sign that will be given to this wicked and adulterous generation, is the sign of Jonah. After 3 days and 3 nights, okay, is our Exodus. Now, Jesus remained on earth for 40 days after he was raised. This was exactly the same principle why Jonah, after he was spat out of the whale, went to Nineveh and preached for 40 days. So there is a 40-day count. Now, there's also a 40-day count in connection to do with the time for Noah as well, when the rain fell. So there is a time parallel of connection to do with how things happened with Noah entering into the ark. Noah had 7 days warning, and after 7 days he entered into the ark, and that was because the rain began. So you had judgment and salvation happening on the very same day. So in the time when the first covenant was established, Aaron and the priests had to go through a 7-day purification process. And then on the 8th day, in Leviticus 9, they came out of the tents, which is, even before the feasts of the Lord were established. They came out of their tents on the 8th day, and Aaron made atonement on the 8th day. So after a 7-day purification process, on the 8th day, Aaron makes atonement to establish the first covenant, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. After 7 blood moons, we are now into the 8th day, okay? Because after the sign of Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights, we are now into the 4th day, which is the 18th day on this timeline. But it is also the 8th day, because the 8th day is the day after the 7 kind of warnings of these blood moons. But it's also the 8th day because it's the first day of the week. After 3 days and 3 nights, the resurrection happened when Mary went to the tomb on the first day of the week. The first day is also the 8th day because it comes after the 7th day. This is why, ever since the 17th of July, we've entered into the 8th day. Now, we also have the 8th day of Tabernacles coming up on the Hebrew kind of time frame for the calendars going on. Now, there are different calendars because they've added their 13th month this year, or, in 2019, which was at the end of their, Hebrew year. And so there are different calendars that are running, a month behind and a month forward this year, which is what we had back in 2016. The same principle that happened. But I personally believe that the Torah calendar was right to add the 13th month in 2017, which is what the Overcomer calendar did. And therefore, because of adding the 13th month in 2017, the 13th month isn't due until 2020. So the Jews, though, added their 13th month in 2016, which is why they added again their 13th month in 2019. in this spring that we've just had. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, now this timeline uses the full moon as the new moon. And it works quite well because these lunar eclipses can only happen at a full moon. So it works in partnership with this timeline. Back in 2012, the Lord made me aware of the blood moons that were coming up in 2014 and 15. I didn't know why. I just had it in my notepad that the Lord was showing me that these 4 blood moons were coming up on these dates, and he led me to a full moon, new moon calendar, which was and is still in existence, called thecreatorscalendar.com. I'll put a link in the description box. So from 2015, well, probably towards the end of 2014 and into 2015, I did go into the full moon as the new moon, and it is still very much a minority voice. Many don't really believe it is the new moon, but I always feel like the minority voice can often be the truest, to be honest. So anyway, again, it's the same principle for when the day starts. The day begins from sunrise, and again, that is a minority belief, but I still believe that's correct according to Genesis, that God works for 12 hours, then he rests for 12 hours, and that makes one complete day of 24 hours. It's quite simple. Day for working, night for resting. 12 hours equals 24 hours, one day. Very simple. But in accordance to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Unleavened Bread actually begins from the evening of the 14th day, because this is when Passover night begins. And that's really the only difference that you have, really, when you see a day beginning from the evening, is in terms of it being in connection to the Feast of Unleavened Bread in particular, which is why it goes from the evening of the 14th day to the evening of the 21st day for the whole week of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So I've been developing this timeline over the last 4 years through the grace of God, and we've come to this point now since the 17th of July when we entered into the morning, because Passover night finished early. So we're in the 9th hour. And this is why it's so significant, because this 9th hour is paralleled over with the 9th hour that happened at the resurrection point when Jesus gave up his spirit. And the new covenant was established here. So just like I said to you before, that Aaron makes atonement on the 8th day. This is the 17th day, okay, which is the 8th day after the Passover lamb has been selected on the 10th day. It's a bit like the parallel with Noah. He was given a 7-day warning, and he gets into the ark on the 17th day. So the 17th day would be the 8th day after the 7-day warning, which is the same principle, really, that Jesus went through, being that he was the high priest that entered into Jerusalem riding on a donkey, and also he was the Passover lamb that was selected on the 10th day. Okay, so the 17th day would actually be the 8th day. So this is why the resurrection happens, really, as well as it being the 3rd day, it happens on the 8th day. It's paralleled over with it being in the 9th hour. Okay, so this was to establish the new covenant, which now includes Gentiles. So 2 years later, we have this same pattern now of being in the 9th hour, because the morning has intervened the night early. So we're in the 9th hour because there are only 9 hours of Passover night. So we're in this time period of being in the 9th hour since the 17th of July. Now, on this timeline, an hour lasts 2 lunar months. So, as of the 15th of August, we actually entered into halfway through the 9th hour. And the 9th hour actually ends on the 13th of September. That's the last day of the 9th hour. Then the 10th hour would begin as of September the 14th. So, this is really why our Exodus is imminent. Now, 40 days after the sign of Jonah, which manifested and completed here, 40 days after that takes us to the 26th of August, okay, tomorrow. So today would be the 40th day from the 17th of July. So today is the 40th day. Tomorrow would be the day after 40 days. So we could have the manifestation of the rapture even happen tomorrow. Okay, because when Jesus was resurrected, okay, on the third day, which is paralleled here over with the ninth hour, which is why some of the saints of old were raised in their tombs at that moment that Jesus gave up his spirit, and why Jesus said to the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. Okay, because there's always there has already been the sign of Jonah. Okay, so let's just show you that again. So this is the first sign of Jonah. So this is why Jesus said to the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise, because by the time he gives up his spirit, the third day has already happened. It's already come to pass at that moment. As soon as this time frame happens here, it's the third day. So that's why the resurrection happened. Okay, 1 day, 1 night, 2 days, second night, third day, third night, bam. Okay, this is the third day after the 14th. Okay, but after 3 days and 3 nights, that's when you have the manifestation. Okay, 17 take away 14 equals 3. So you do have 3 full days here. 3 full days is, I've already said, 12 hours for daytime, 12 hours for nighttime. Okay, times 3 is 72 hours. Right, then bam, after 72 hours, the resurrection happens. After the second sign of Jonah, therefore, that finishes here on the 17th of July, we're now anticipating to see the time period for the rapture in parallel with what happened here. Okay, because this was the resurrection, so to speak, even though it's before Jesus was put into the tomb. But it's like a prophetic layered timeline, okay, which is what people need to understand, that you can't understand this through logic, all right? So Jesus, obviously, after his resurrection, remained on earth for 40 days, just like Jonah, obviously, came out of the belly of the whale after 3 days, 3 nights, went to Nineveh and preached repentance for 40 days. Jesus remained on earth for 40 days. And when, after 40 days, he lifted up his hands and blessed the people. So this is what a high priest would do after making atonement, which is what Aaron did when he established the first covenant in Leviticus chapter 9. He lifted up his hands and blessed the people on the 8th day. So Jesus, obviously, here at this point establishes the new covenant, the second covenant here at the 9th hour, paralleled over with the 13th day. He makes atonement. He remains on earth for 40 days. And then after 40 days, he's lifted up. Okay. So 40 days after this point here on the timeline actually took us in 2017 to the Day of Atonement. That's why Jesus lifted up his hands and blessed the people. So we have this as a kind of time parallel to be able to gauge 40 days after the resurrection, which is kind of here as well. Okay, because remember, they couldn't leave their homes until morning, and yet we know that they left in haste in the night. So this is why our Exodus is going to happen in the morning. So do we add 40 days from the 17th of July, or do we add 40 days from the new moon day of the 6th month, which is what this period was, the new moon day of the 6th month? Add 40 days takes us to the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, and this is what I've got here. Okay, the moon was turned to blood red back in September 2017 in America. Add 40 days, it takes us to the Day of Atonement on the overcomercalendar.com, and it went the sun turned to darkness during the daytime in England. Okay, so the moon was turned to darkness in America and the sun was turned to darkness in England. There's a pattern here, okay, that could happen again. So the 24th of September would therefore be the 10th day of the 7th month. Now, 40 days after the 17th of July would actually take us to tomorrow, being the 10th day of the 6th month. Okay, Now, I call it a prophetic atonement because remember, when Jesus lifted up his hands and blessed the people, as what a high priest would do after making atonement, and he was lifted up, we know that Jesus manifested himself as the high priest of a new covenant. But yet it wasn't the 7th month when Jesus was taken up. It was towards the end of the 2nd month. Because you had 40 days from the 17th day of the 1st month. You get to about the 27th day of the 2nd month. So why was Jesus manifesting himself in that way as he lifted up his hands and blessed the people? Because it was like showing us that something would happen 40 days after the resurrection. So the rapture could very well happen tomorrow, being 40 days after the 17th of July. Okay? If it doesn't happen tomorrow, then it could be 40 days after the new moon day of the 6th month, taking us to the 24th of September for the Day of Atonement. Now, we also have the feasts in the calendar, and looking at just the overcomercalendar.com, the 8th day of the Feast of Tabernacles is the 6th of October. Okay, so I'm going to show you that now on the calendar. So these 3 dates, so the reason why this channel is looking at these dates in particular, especially this one. Okay, I would love it to be this one because tomorrow would be perfect. No one's expecting it tomorrow, but it could very well be because it's 40 days after we entered into the morning. It very well could be the 26th of August. I just get like a ripple of joy when I said that because it truly could be tomorrow. Okay? Now, if it doesn't happen tomorrow, then we've got just under a month to go till we get to the Day of Atonement on the Overcomer calendar, being the 24th of September, and then we go through the feasts, okay? Especially the Feast of Tabernacles, which has always been a very high watch time because it connects with the transfiguration of Jesus on the Mount. Okay, now the ultimate wildcard is 100 days from the 17th of July, being the Pentecost count of 100 days after, the first fruits, which is after 3 days, 3 nights. So count 100 days takes us to the 24th of October. So that would be the ultimate wild card. Now, I'm going to show you, okay, so that's 2017. I'm going to show you the calendar for 2019. Okay, so we're in the 6th month, okay, at the moment, because, as I've said, the Overcomer calendar haven't added the 13th month this year. We will be adding it next year, 2020. So, the other calendar that I mentioned, the Creator's calendar, they added their 13th month at the end of the Hebrew year this spring in 2019. So they're still in the 5th month. Okay, so they're a month behind. And this could be relevant, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. Okay, so as I said, 25th of August, this is where we are at the moment. Okay, so the 10th day of the 6th month could be the prophetic Day of Atonement. Okay, 40 days after we entered into the morning from the 17th of July. Now, 40 days from the new moon day of the 6th month, which was back here, the 16th of August or the 15th, depending on which one that was, but it takes us to the Day of Atonement, the 24th of September, as being the second one. Okay, I don't really go for the Feast of Trumpets, personally, because everything is pointing to Atonement, and that being 40 days after, or Day of Atonement being the 8th day, because that's when Aaron lifted up his hands and blessed the people. But I don't want to be limited to a calendar feast day, because there is so much that is seen in this timeline because of there being 3 days and 3 nights over a 5-year time period. Okay, so, that's why I'm trying to be open to the prophetic more than the actual, calendar feast date, which is quite limited in its understanding, but it could still be relevant. So really, from the 29th of September to the 6th of October, we enter into the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which will be pretty much very high watch time. And of course, the 1st of October will be the 17th day of the 7th month, which will be obviously the 3rd day of the Feast of Tabernacles, which could be a connection there as well. So this is very much a high watch time period all throughout this week. Now, if the 13th month was to be added this spring, and I was in error, then the 8th month would be the 7th month. Okay, but what I want to show you is that if I am correct, and this is the 8th month, and nothing happens in the 7th month, then the time for Noah could come into play here, because a lot of scholars have said that the 2nd month, Noah entering into the ark on the 17th day, is paralleled over with the ecclesiastical year of the Hebrew year, which would be the 8th month being the 2nd month. Okay, so the 17th of the 8th month, the 17th day of the 8th month, could be the connection to Noah being the 31st of October, which is Halloween. However, if this is the 7th month, because if I do need to add a 13th month, then this would be the 7th month. Then the 22nd day of the 7th month would be the 5th of November, which would be the 8th day of Tabernacles. So the 5th of November really truly is the last day that this channel will be looking at, really, ultimately, for it to happen by. But it could really happen tomorrow. And I just wanted to do this video just to clarify that this timeline, this prophetic timeline, the dual Passover night timeline, only works with this calendar. Okay, which uses the full moon as the new moon, right, which is what I'm sticking to. Okay, ever since 2012, the Lord led me to the full moon as the new moon, and I've been it's taken me a few years to really ground myself in it, and ever since 2017, the Lord led me to set up the Overcomer calendar. And if anything, it was really because of this time period here. You know, back then I was looking at Pentecost being in these dates. And then, of course, the new moon day of the 6th month, which was the resurrection point on the timeline. And then 40 days later, it takes us to the Day of Atonement. This is back in 2017. So it's interesting that this calendar was in operation only 2 years ago in time to see this timing event that's on the timeline. So let's go back to the timeline, just finish off there. So this timeline really is so perfect. It shows the sign of Jonah, really in the sense of there being two signs of Jonah's, the first one here and then the second one overlapped with the first one here. And then we have the day of the Lord that lasts really until December 2020. So because the day of the Lord hasn't begun yet, that's God's mercy to us. His time is always mercy. Because the day of the Lord will be a terrible day, and it will be when Christians will be persecuted and terrible times will happen in the world. But this is the time period that Jesus says that we may be counted worthy to escape from through being in that place of faith to be watching and praying, because that's why Jesus said, watch and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape these terrible times. So this is really why this channel really is going to be looking at these particular dates in particular. Okay, so it's to parallel over with obviously the resurrection point on the timeline 2017. So the 24th of September, tomorrow being the 26th of August, you know, oh my goodness, that would be amazing to happen tomorrow, 40 days after we entered into into the morning, the next day after the new day after the sign of Jonah. This would be the 4th day. Okay, so it could be a literal 40 days, and it literally could happen tomorrow. So if it happens tomorrow, this would be the reason why, is this. And so these are the dates, and then we've got the 8th day of Tabernacles being the 6th of October. This was when, to be honest, the 8th day of Tabernacles was when my ministry really began back in 2014. So I was doing a countdown for the 8th day of Tabernacles back in 2014 on the Overcomer channel. So, you know, I don't hide away from the fact that I had another channel beforehand. That I didn't leave it to start up another one in secret or anything like that. I left it because I was having technical issues. And that's why if you look at my About section on this channel, I clearly do say that I've been a watchman for the Lord on YouTube since 2014, and I previously uploaded on the Overcomer channel. So a lot of people want to expose me as being a false prophet because I've had previous false states. They've not really appreciated or understood the maturity of time to see how this channel and revelation has developed really since October 2014. Which has been pretty amazing, really, for 5 years to come to this point now. And this is why you can have hope, you know, that this timeline has developed over time. And so these dates really, so we got the live stream, just quickly, live stream today, 6 p.m. Just a quick reminder if you've managed to get to 26 minutes of this video. But really, you know, this is why I know that our Exodus is imminent, because we've come out of the sign of Jonah and we're in the 9th hour, and the 10th hour begins as of the 14th of September. But we also know that when Jesus saw them walking on the water, when Jesus saw them rowing on the water, he came down walking to them on the water, and they were about 3 miles out. And it takes us about an hour to walk 3 miles. So this is why this time period is the second most likely day to look at, pushing it really to the 6th of October, and again pushing it even more to the 24th of October being the 10th day of the 8th month, but it could be the 10th day of the 7th month. And then finally, you know, we got the 17th day of the 8th month connected with Noah, and then finally it's the 22nd day. If this is the 7th month, if this is the 22nd day of the 7th month, then this would be the 8th day of Tabernacles. And that's as far as really I'm going to go, is up to the 5th of November. But I'm believing really that it's imminent. Could happen literally tomorrow, 40 days after the 17th of July, if not 24th of September. If not the 24th of September, then it will be this time period here. And then going into this month. But we can only tell really once we get there. And that's all I can say. So I hope this video has helped people to understand why this channel looks at these specific dates. And really that the rapture margin really takes us from, it was from the 17th of July, which is when we entered into the morning, all the way through to the 5th of November is really that margin time period. And that will be it really. You know, after that, even though the day of the Lord goes on until December 2020, the day of the Lord should really begin by that point then. Okay, well, God bless you everybody and have a great day.